Film and Whiskey Nation, do you ever think about awards? Of course you do. You drink whiskey and watch movies, which means that you know that nothing is validated until a group of random people say, hey, we love what you're doing. The awesome thing about Doc Swinson's whiskey is that it isn't just some group of schlubs that are giving them awards. They have been winning attention from some of the most important whiskey experts that you can imagine. They've been voted best distillery in Washington State by the New York International Spirits Competition. They've been voted the best independent bottler by the Ascot Awards, as well as the best finished bourbon from the Ascot Awards for their La Menta Exploratory Cask. Their Exploratory Cask series is where they release some of the most fascinating and adventurous experiments. If you're ever checking out Doc's lineup and see a white label, there's a really good chance that that's the only time you'll see that bottle, so make sure you snatch it up. Doc Swinson's has been offering just phenomenal finished and blended whiskeys for quite some time now. You can find them online at docswhiskey.com. That's DOCS whiskey.com.
On today's Film and Whiskey, we make our glorious return to the state of Kentucky for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. We're on site doing interviews with distillers, with owners, and everybody in between. That's all ahead on the Film and Whiskey Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome into the Film and Whiskey Podcast. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we have just returned, or half of us have just returned, from the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Brad, this was an extravaganza, and this episode is going to reflect that fact.
Yes, I don't even know if it should be called an episode, Bob. I think it's like a Mega-sode.
It is a Mega-sode. So I literally just pulled into my house like an hour ago. I am editing the crap out of this episode right now. It will release on Monday, the day after the festival wrapped up. Brad is still in the process of traveling. He's staying with some friends, and I think everyone else is asleep in the house except for you right now as we wrap up.
I'm committed, man. I'm ready.
You are committed. You are committed. So the sultry sound of Brad's voice is so low and slow because he's trying not to wake up a bunch of small children in the house. So let's talk a little bit about the Bourbon Festival. Brad, it was our first time there. What were your impressions? Brad explains the Bourbon Festival.
Man, Bob, it was an absolute blast to just meet a ton of really cool people. Mm-hmm. Like being with the attendees, of which we were kind of ones. But yeah, just being able to talk to people, being able to meet some cool friends that we've made throughout the years, like Chris Blattner, and Jackie Zykan and a few other people that were just like, man, like we've connected over the internet. You know, the pandemic throws a loop in things. The fact that we have small children throws a loop in, like, you know, going to meet people. But sure. Man, it was so cool to just meet a lot of really genuinely authentic, awesome folks at this event.
So this was a 4-day outdoor festival in Kentucky in mid-September, which means it felt like it was the middle of the summer for anywhere else on Earth. It was very, very hot.
Very muggy.
We did like 5 or 6 full interviews that you're going to hear stitched together throughout this episode. We thought about breaking this up into multiple episodes, but we were like, no. Like, we want people to be able to hear what we talked about at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. So you're going to hear, I think it's either 5 or 6 full interviews. And in between each interview, you're going to hear from some listeners of the podcast from far and wide that came to the festival, and they tell us who they are, where they're from, and what their favorite movie is. Brad, without further ado, let's get to it, man.
Yeah, dude, I am so excited for you guys to listen to this. If you want to talk about the festival, ask more questions about what our experience was like, jump onto our Discord. We're on there every day. We're talking to you guys. So yeah, get on our Discord. You can find a link to it at the end of our show notes. But guys, enjoy this episode. It's going to be a blast.
All right, everybody, we're here with Dan Callaway, VP of Product Development at Bardstown Bourbon Company. A guy we have not seen in the flesh in like 3 years.
Since pre-COVID, Bob.
Listen, we went down to Bardstown Bourbon Company in season 1 of our podcast when we had 7 listeners.
And 2 of them were our parents.
Yeah. And this guy, Dan, he took such good care. We had like an 18-course meal.
Yeah.
He got every appetizer they had.
Easily. The server came over and was like, "What do you want?" And Dan's like, "This," and handed him the menu.
The whole menu. Honestly, Dan, we have never forgotten how well you all treated us when we came down to Bardstown. And everybody we talk to, we tell them, if you're going to go somewhere in Kentucky, in Bourbon Company, you got to go to Bardstown Bourbon.
Yeah, thank you. And we are so proud of our hospitality program. I feel like it's the number one team on the trail. And everyone who visits, we want to have that same sentiment. And thank you to you two. It's awesome to see you on this... feels like a summer day almost.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Here in Bardstown. So,
I was going to
cheers.
say, the one thing I don't miss about living in Kentucky, 89 degrees in middle of September.
Just sweating until mid-November.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
easily.
exactly. All right, so we're here on site at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. This is obviously such a big deal for Bardstown Bourbon Company because it's right in your backyard here. But, you know, in your role, when you look at a festival like this, like, how important is this for the industry? I mean, Bardstown is so focused on tourism in general, and Bardstown Bourbon Company, like, you guys have set yourself up to be such a destination. So when you look at this festival, like, what does it tell you?
It's a great question. Well, and I think it starts from the beginning. It was an intentional decision to build the distillery in Bardstown, the bourbon capital of the world. 16 miles, there's 11 distilleries, right, in that radius. So we could have built the distillery in Miami, San Francisco. We wanted to surround ourselves with this bourbon history and then have a modern take. So for us, it's an opportunity for guests to come in and see the bourbon brands of Kentucky and see where we slot in as that innovator, collaborating with transparency and just see where we fit in the industry.
Yeah, it's also cool to see how the Kentucky Bourbon Festival itself has transformed over the years, right? That, like, it almost reflects the state of the industry right now, right?
Completely. And I actually sit on the board of the Bourbon Festival, so
Okay.
I'm very close to it.
There you go.
It's amazing, the transformation, just like you say, to have for all these distilleries to develop hospitality programs, really put an emphasis on the front-facing operation. I think the Bourbon Festival is doing the same thing. It's elevating it. You're seeing more culinary pairings, immersive experiences, something really curated to modern bourbon fans.
Well, I feel like when you look at, if you could put the hospitality portion of the industry on like a curve, it's almost like an exponential growth. And it just kind of seems like everyone woke up 5 years ago and decided, like, oh, this is a really important aspect that we haven't been investing enough into. And from even when we started the podcast, 2019 to now, and look at, like you said, the front-facing aspect of some of these distilleries, it really does seem like...
It's just grown at an insane rate. And honestly, for the benefit of the consumer. Like that's solely what it's for. It's not like these companies wanted to shell out all this money to like make people feel good,
to look nice,
look nice, but they are doing it, and it's for our benefit, the people who drink whiskey.
It's amazing because you're seeing it from both sides. You're seeing it from the newer distilleries as a way to build your brand. For us, that was it, right? Let's get people in here, show them different ways to taste bourbon through a cocktail class, through a culinary pairing, have a great meal, and at the end of the day, that's how you connect with Bardstown Bourbon Company. Now we're seeing hospitality programs from the traditional distillers as a way to maintain their brand. So it's exciting. It's a great time to be in the industry.
So share a little bit with our listeners about your specific role at Bardstown, and, you know, what projects do they have you heading up right now that you're allowed to talk about? You know?
Sure. Well, we're transparent. I can talk about it all. So I oversee product development. So that's the blends, how we're approaching them, and then on our collaborative series, who we're working with. So, for example, we have some fantastic barrels aging currently in Foursquare Rum, their first collaboration, Goose Island Bourbon County Stout. You're going to see a really cool experimentation with a cooperage at the end of this year with rye finished in toasted cherrywood barrels. So we just want to stay on the forefront. And then on our blends with the Discovery Series, you're just going to see us pushing boundaries on that. And the most exciting thing is beginning of 23, for the first time you'll see our Origin series 100% distilled, aged right on site with a 6-year age statement.
That's incredible,
Let's
man.
go.
That's incredible.
So that it's all been building to that.
Yeah.
All right, I know you guys have the new Chateau Lobad that just came out, right?
Yeah, we're pouring it right now at Bourbon Fest.
We might have to walk over there and
I
grab a
was
little
going to say, we're going to finish this interview right now. Good talking to you guys.
So I know that, you're a good company man. Like, you're going to say whatever the newest one is your favorite. But of all of the collaborative and finishes and everything else that you've done, like, what's your favorite one to sip?
Well, the one I'm working on is the one that's top of mind.
Yeah.
The new Labad, the Chateau de Labad, it was an exercise of really thoughtfully pairing the Armagnac. So the first one, is got a crazy following, crazy secondary. For the second one, I knew we wanted to make it different. We weren't just trying to replicate the same thing. So it's an exercise in barrel finishing. They're stored. The first load arrived, and we put them on a low rick house to go along, floor of the rick house to go a long time. The second delivery came on a high floor to get hot. Then it's a blend of Kentucky bourbon and Tennessee made to kind of match that Armagnac profile, and it's stellar.
Yeah.
Brad and I have been, hoarding the last little bit of the very first issue you guys did of Pfeiffer Pavitt.
That also won that best in class for finished whiskey in San Francisco. And that's what set the stage, and we're seeing a lot of people do it the same way for how we transport barrels, right? Most people rinse out your wine barrels. We leave the residuals in. We keep those dregs. We put argon gas, and we ship them immediately so it doesn't sit on a dock. It doesn't oxidize, and all that freshness carries over into the spirit. And that Pfeiffer Pavitt was the first one to take that approach.
Yeah, I'm literally not kidding. This was right before the pandemic started. I showed up at the hospital right after Bob and his wife had their second kid, and I had a bottle of
that's
Pfeiffer
the
Pavitt.
pour we shared. Yeah,
that was the celebratory drink. So.
That doesn't tell you what we think about Bardstown Bourbon Company. Yeah,
that's cool.
All right, Dan. Before we let you go today, we always try to segue into my favorite movie. So
wow,
I'm putting you on the spot, but when I'd say what is your favorite film and why, what comes to top of mind here?
Okay, this is on the spot.
Yeah.
So a lot is I should have considered this question.
There's so much riding on this question.
I love great comedy.
Okay.
I'm going to do a wild card. I love the movie Bottle Rocket. That is...
the timing on this
is literally perfect. We're in the middle of a Wes Anderson miniseries.
Okay.
Currently. We just did Rushmore. I believe Moonrise Kingdom is coming out in a week. And then
Grand Budapest.
And then Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah. Awesome. The lines in Bottle Rocket and just the story behind making that movie.
Yeah.
It's just it just really hits me. It's hilarious.
Oh my gosh, man.
It's kind of like when you have that famous artist and you're like, oh, this is from his early years. like Bottle Rocket is when he had no money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and it carries through, right? It's not a polished film at all, but it's just, and those actors to see what they went on to do, it's just incredible.
It's incredible, man. Well, listen, we're going to have you back on the show to talk about Bottle Rocket one of these days.
I would love to talk movies with you guys.
Yeah.
That would be a blast.
Maybe we could do a showing at the Distillery.
Let's do Bottle Rocket at the Distillery. We'll pair some bourbon.
I love it.
The Dignan finish would be perfect.
Oh, man.
Hey, let's go.
All right, everybody. Dan Callaway from Bardstown Bourbon Company, thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, my name is Jessica Krantz, and I'm from San Diego, California, and I really like Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken, and I would definitely pair it with Widow Jane.
All right, everybody. We are here with Brad, if I can speak frankly here.
Be as honest as you want, Bob.
A pretty big fish, if we're being honest, man. We're talking with Freddie No, who is the 8th generation master distiller at the James B. Beam Distilling Company. I can't believe I'm sitting across from you, man. It's an honor to have you in the tent
it's
here.
really great to have you here.
So we're sitting here, all of us, just kind of sweating our asses off on a pretty hot Kentucky day at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
You guys both chose to wear dark colored shirts. It's
good idea,
impressive choice.
Yeah.
Freddie, tell me a little bit about what it's been like for you since the announcement was made, 4 months ago now? Yeah. I mean, I have to imagine it's been a whirlwind.
No, I mean, it was already kind of a whirlwind before that, right? We had just reopened our campus. We got a new restaurant on site. Mm-hmm. We got a new distillery named after my dad that I've been heading up the research and production of. And then we revamped our tour. So, I mean, it was a pretty hectic time before. It just maybe shifted to be hectic for a different reason, right? A lot of interviews, people kind of wanting to know, what's the role change for me kind of mean. But yeah, I mean, just a lot more of the same, right? And a lot more of the things I enjoy doing, right?
Yep.
Talking about my family, the whiskey that we make. So, all good change, right?
Yeah.
All good, good busyness, right?
100%.
Yeah. Well, as I say, you get the promotion because you're good at doing what you're doing. So,
Right.
like,
Hopefully. Right.
Parts of your job don't change at all because they want you to keep being awesome at what you do, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. You're right.
Although, if you
Exactly.
ever want to change your industry, you have one of the best radio voices I think I've
You know,
ever heard in my life.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Literally, I've heard that before. I have, Wes Henderson at Angels Envy used to do radio. I'm gonna have to ask him what he thinks about it
Yeah.
too. But I've heard that at least you're at least a second. I think maybe even a third if I'm trying to remember back. But that's funny, yeah. That's
Brad and
funny.
I both have backgrounds working with churches. So we do a lot with organizations, trying to keep organizations healthy. And when I look at the situation that you have at Jim Beam now, like a lot of people look at that and say, all right, they got 2 master distillers. How's that working out? To me, I think that's a sign of a really healthy organization.
Yeah, I
and really
agree.
clear communication that, one of you doesn't feel like you're getting pushed out and the other one doesn't feel like you're being pushed down. Talk a little bit about how that collaboration works between the two of you.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, if you look at it, there's a lot of, I guess, whiskey to be watched over, right?
Sure.
There's Jim Beam, as you mentioned, the small batch collection my granddad created, Little Book, Hardin's Creek, a couple other things I've been working on that are coming soon. So there's definitely a lot of things to be looked after, and we were already kind of dually working on things. Thank you, my friend. Just had a little cocktail drop, right?
Thank you very
Cocktail
much.
drops, yeah.
Hey.
So this is a Jim Beam Black Whiskey Sire. Is that right, Josh? Yeah, all right.
Oh, well, cheers to you.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, glad to be here. Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
essentially it was, already kind of happening, right? Dad would pitch ideas off me for things. If I had an idea, I would bring it to him, and we'd work with the marketing team generally as well. A lot of where my role is focusing is kind of capturing the quality markers that we've got set. Kind of doing some documentation on that more recently, but also, how can we've got that new distillery to do some research for innovation, right? It kind of for Little Book, where we'll be expanding flavor profiles of American whiskey, but even for Jim Beam, right? It's how do we do research to enhance the quality of all of our products, and process improvement, right? I guess that's, when you break it down to it's process improvement. So I've really kind of leaned into that and the quality of our whiskey. I've worked really closely with Shinji and his team at Suntory on kind of, they have a very robust quality system.
Yeah.
So we've kind of really taught each other about Japanese whiskey. I'll admit I was very dumb about the product and about the way to make it. So it was an honor to learn from them on that. But and then also, so we visited there in Japan at their at Yamazaki. We'll probably visit next year again to another one. But just that collaboration has really kind of driven me in a path of making sure our quality markers are kind of locked in place for the long term. As you may be seen, we're expanding our facility. And with that, right, there's new technology opportunities, but making sure what we're doing is for the betterment and the higher quality of the whiskey is kind of where my role's focusing now. If you met my dad, he loves to chat it up, and he's coming off of a procedure where he's kind of an immune system with a kidney transplant. But as he's getting back more into work, he's going to spend more time at the new visitor center, cutting it up with the guests, and just telling those stories that I think are so unique, whether they have to do with whiskey or, I was telling one last night of my grandmother blowing the oven door open, the oven buster batch of Bookers, and the story behind that. Those are just funny stories that people resonate with our family, and then to have a whiskey tie, that's pretty cool. So
Absolutely.
he'll be sitting up there hopefully a lot, cutting it up with the guests and sharing that kind of good word of whiskey from the Beam family.
Yeah. Well, and it's just so cool to see how 20 to 30 years ago, when whiskey's going through what it's going through, all you have time for is to make your main product.
Right.
And now with the boom in whiskey, it gives you an opportunity to start experimenting,
That's right.
start trying with stuff that might not, make the budget 20 years ago. Now you're like, we have to do this to really stay on the cutting edge.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it too, right? I mean, the other side of that, with the boom, all of the brands were already making got such a demand and rise as the industry's risen. It's kind of still an argument of getting those things. It's a little bit easier. I'll say that. I've probably definitely got an easier way to going about doing innovation than Granddad or Dad did because of the, obviously I mean, American whiskey is just so polarizing now, even across internationally. So it's a great opportunity, and then to be able to have that place where we can make a little bit of whiskey, kind of share that and get people excited about it as it's aging. It makes it easier to kind of sell those new whiskeys when you have that there to taste versus trying to sell them on a vision, right? Yeah.
We just had Dan Callaway in here a few hours ago from Bardstown Bourbon, and we were talking about the industry becoming more front-facing in the last 10 years, and the hospitality part of it really, taken off. I guess I got to ask you, what's it like becoming a master distiller in the sort of new age of being a master distiller, where, again, 30 years ago, you go hide in the rick house and take samples of stuff. And now you got to be the face of the brand in a lot of ways.
It's a balance, right? I try to find time to still go find my way into I like the fermentation room. I run around the fermenters and smell them. Operators look at me like, they're worried. What's he doing over there? What's wrong? I'm just, getting out of, I sit on phone calls a lot. And then interviews and things like that. And I enjoy it. It's great, I think, right?
The smell of the fermenting room is just what you need.
I'll tell you what, it locks you back into reality, right, of what you're doing it for, right? So it's always great. It's a good place to get grounded right there, I think. So, but yeah, I mean, even to your point, just going in the warehouse, grabbing a couple samples, even just kind of, again, wandering around and just the sights and smells that maybe if you're stuck in a conference room or even like festivals like this are great. But when I go back to the distillery, it's a nice, quiet place to kind of work and enjoy the craft that I enjoy doing. So I think it's great, right? Because it gives me the opportunity to really lean into this, right? Like this week, I'm consumer facing, front facing, as you say, really doing a lot of this stuff. Next week we're actually Booker Node's coming out of shutdown for the summer for cleanup and routine maintenance. So it'll kind of be like, hey, I'm going to go check in and see what's going on. So it's kind of a switch back and forth that I kind of love being able to kind of to play with, right? So, and it's an opportunity to share stories, but still get in there and learn and expand my knowledge of whiskey making.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting away from the whiskey for a second, let's just forget about whiskey for a second. We'll put you on the spot.
Oh, shit.
What's your favorite movie and why?
Whew, that's a tough one for me. There's so many really good movies. I mean, even genre related, right? When I was younger, I was really into sports movies. I played football and basketball in school. This one is a little bit of a throwback called The Program.
Oh, with James Caan.
I was going to say with James Caan. I love that movie. Just because it kind of it's just like that envisionment of what college football was in the 90s, right? Yes. So I love that one. Let's see. Another one, Super Troopers. I just think it's so funny. I just love the hell out of that movie. Right. That's my wife's favorite line in it, too. That's my wife's favorite line. So, I just love it in the mood, right? It's kind of what you're in the mood for. Yep. I like suspense movies as well. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the one. Is it, it's not White House Down, but it might be. I think it's with Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
That what is that called?
There was two of them that came out at the same time.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what right,
it's
very
like
similar.
The Prestige and The Illusionist.
That's another one. I love The Prestige.
Came out at the same time, and I'm like, they're both magic movies that were really serious.
Yes.
I don't remember which one is which.
That's a good one too.
Exactly.
I love Prestige.
Well, listen, man, when we do the Super Troopers podcast and we get the review going on that, you better come on and be the guest host.
I love it. Awesome. I love it. It's funny. So my wife, when we met, she had never seen it, and she's like, "Let's watch a funny movie." And I was like, "Have you seen Super Troopers?" She's like, "No." And of course, it starts out, and she's like, "All right, what the hell is this?" Yeah. And then she finally gets to laugh, and so it's funny. She liked it.
I would say I don't know if it was a first date, but
it wasn't first date.
As a movie to watch with your girlfriend, Super Troopers is either a grand slam or like.
It is. Well, you don't get to watch much of it, right? Like 15, 20 minutes in. If you're there and it's still it's not uneasy, you're good, right?
That's how you knew she was the one.
Right, exactly.
He just got down on one knee right after that.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right, everybody. This has been Freddie. No, he is the 8th generation master distiller at the James B. Beam Distilling Company.
Dude, what a title.
Cannot thank you enough for sitting down with us. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. Cheers again.
Great.
Cheers to you.
Hey, I'm Liz from Atlanta. My favorite movie is the OG Top Gun, and I would pair it with 1792.
All right, Brad, we are sitting down with the leaders of Luca Mariano.
Yeah.
Which, if you've been a listener to this podcast for any length of time, you have heard us
Sing the praises.
without getting paid by them. Let's just say, like, we're just fans of this whiskey.
Yeah, I mean, they sent us whiskey for free.
They did.
Which is phenomenal. But a lot of people do that.
Yes.
We don't sing everybody's praises.
We don't. And I think it's worth noting, too, that, like, we always reserve our favorite whiskeys of the season for those bracket episodes at the end of the year.
We do.
And we did the Luca Mariano lineup
Was that season 3 or season 4?
I can't remember, man. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
But I remember even at the time drinking even their 80 proof rye.
Yep.
And saying, like, this is one of the best 80 proof whiskeys I've ever had. Like, the level of complexity at that level of dilution was just game changing for me.
So needless to say, we're wildly excited to have you guys on the show.
Yeah, we're sitting across from Francesco and from David Phillips, who I don't know if this is like the official announcement. They've put out the press release at this point, but the new master distiller.
That's right.
At Luca Mariano.
It is an official announcement. I mean, we're making it right here at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
Oh, awesome.
First time, so we're making our rounds today to do that. So this is the official announcement.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Congratulations, man. That's exciting.
Thanks for sitting down with us. We've got the press release sitting in front of us, but I want to hear it, straight from the horse's mouth here. So let's talk a little bit about this. You've been in the industry for a long, long time, and you've come from some of the big boys in the industry.
Yes, 18 years.
Tell us a bit about your history, David.
Yeah, so, like I said, about 18 years ago, I started with Jim Beam, worked both the Claremont and the Booker Noe Distillery. Had some amazing teachers down there at the time. Got a chance to work with Fred. No,
you mean they know what they're doing down there?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. they've done all right. So yeah, I worked with Fred Noe. I worked with Jerry Dalton, who was the then master distiller. My mentor in this business was Larry Walker, and moved down to the Booker Noe Distillery where I became senior supervisor. Took them through a pretty massive expansion down in Boston, and from there I went to the Bullet Distillery in Shelbyville. So yeah, it's been a long 18 years and a long climb up, and I finally find a guy here that's crazy enough to take a chance on me.
Absolutely,
and, give me the chance to run his place. So
that's exciting. Well, honestly, we've been talking a little bit off air about the product that was laid down before you came on, and obviously we're raving about it now. Yeah. So I feel like, what's it like starting off in this place where you've got a reputation built up already for yourself of having really great product and having to carry on that tradition, as recent as that tradition might be, but also trying to put your own spin on things, Well,
that's, in the early conversations with Francesco, that was the most important part for me, was to be able to come in, carry on and build what he has and do it kind of the old school way. I told him, you're not getting the prettiest face in the industry, and, you're getting a guy that, may have a little foul language here and there and everything else, but,
foul language in the whiskey industry?
Every now and then that happens. Every now and then that happens. I promised my wife I'd behave while I was down here this weekend.
Right.
But, and that's what he's allowing me to do, is be boots on the ground, hands on, get dirty in the process, and, and not just build my name in the industry, but also build the brands that he has started and, continue the legacy.
Absolutely.
What's important to note is that David, when we interviewed him, he wasn't so much concerned about a title. He just wanted to be the guy that's in there making things happen and distilling and making the best quality bourbon and rye whiskey that you possibly can. And when we talked, I'm like, I'm not going to be the master distiller, because that's just like me being like a mascot for our brand or me. I'm not doing the work anymore. I'm doing other things. So it was very important to me that the person that's doing the work, that's actually in there every day making it happen, that they get the title of master distiller. They earned it. Yeah. And David, I couldn't be happier to have David on board. I mean, with his experience, expertise, and everything that he's accomplished in his life, to bring that to Luca Mariano, I mean, we're honored and blessed to have him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's true in any industry, right? That there are certain people out there who are just to make a name for themselves, and then there's people who really love the craft right? Like, I genuinely, like,
Yeah.
think about movies, I think about Tom Cruise. Like, he loves the craft of making movies, right? Like, if you know anything about him, you know that he is obsessed with the mechanical nature of raw filmmaking.
And he gets into the character, right?
Yeah.
And stays there for like a
You're
long
the Tom
time.
Cruise of whiskey is what we're saying.
So when my wife hears this, I want to make sure you guys,
100%.
she hears it 100%. You're comparing me with Tom
To
Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
All right.
Yeah.
Mrs.
All right.
Phillips,
Yeah, there we go.
you're a lucky lady.
Whiskey right here.
She's going to love you two guys. I promise you.
So you're the second master distiller that we've had in the tent today. And I feel like it's been a recurring theme with all of our interviews today about how the industry has become much more kind of outward facing and forward facing to the public, and how when you're a master distiller now, you're the face of the brand in addition to being the guy that's hiding in the rick house. So what's it like for you now knowing that in some ways you're going to be the face of, the distillate that you're producing?
Well, it's an awesome responsibility, and it's one you don't take lightly. And that's where I build off of my experience. These guys, they taught me that part of it. Now it's up to me to like you say, be the face and help build that. So hopefully I got that. I told him, I'm not the prettiest, but you guys said I'm Tom Cruise.
I was going to say,
so
it's easy to be the face of something when you're Tom Cruise.
That's right.
Yeah.
Easily.
But I'm passionate about the product, and the industry as a whole, and I think those things are what will show to people, when we get our feet on the ground and when we open the doors for the first time for the public, and guys like for you all to come and visit, I think that will genuinely show to people, and that's where I can bring that side of it, the passion and that I actually love what I'm doing.
And that passion you're going to feel, and you do feel in our product. I mean, when David talks about all this passion and how much he cares, when you have somebody like maybe our grandmother or somebody that knows how to cook, and they put that love into their food, you can taste the difference in a restaurant or somebody that doesn't care.
From our grandmother's generation, though, it's not just love; it's a lot of butter.
No, it's a lot of butter.
I think
That's
that might be
that's
the
a
secret
secret.
ingredient.
That's what's going into these whiskeys now. It's just butter.
Yep.
But you hit on you kind of hit on something with that. I'm humble in a big way, but what I feel like is I'm carrying the torch from the guys that taught me.
Yeah.
And that's really what I want to do, and that's what I told him. That's what's important to me is to carry that torch, the history side of it, the old school side of it, and to be able to tell that story and
Well, and I think that's something that the bourbon industry still does so well. And I don't have anything against NDPs, non-distilling producers. Like, we've never had a problem with that. But there are guys getting into the game now that are, I'm going to throw a bunch of money at this thing, and I'm going to put it out, and I don't care what it tastes like. I don't care what it,
But
and
there's
then
a $1 billion industry, and I'm going to get mine.
And then there are people who say, I will not put my name on this thing unless I know that it is up to par and it's up to the quality that I approve of. And I can tell just talking to you now that that's the kind of guy you are.
Oh, yes, very, very much so. And putting his name on it and everything else.
That's true. I guess you are putting his name on it.
But you do. You want it to be right. You want it, and that's what I've told him. This is going to be one of the best places in the state of Kentucky, and the long-term vision he has, I keep going back to that, the 6, 7, 8 year vision he has for this facility. It's going to be a destination place. It's going to be something that people want to come and really hopefully stay. And not that we're knocking anybody else that, go visit all of them that you want. But our thought is that you're going to come back to us because you like what you have here on this property, the experience and just that hospitality feel.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we talked to Peggy No Stevens really early in the podcast history, and she talked about forming the Bourbon Trail around that idea of, like, we don't want people to just drink whiskey. We want them to experience, like, what it's like for us here in Kentucky making the whiskey. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the industry, right? That, like, you don't go to other industries and experience the family feel that you do when you come. I mean, if you just compare whiskey to any other industry, sure, it's just another big business, big company thing. But no, you come to Kentucky and you realize, oh no, this is a family industry. And there's something endearing about that and important about it.
Exactly.
That's right. And that's what's so important to me is that I don't want to come to the bourbon industry and copy somebody.
Yeah.
That's not who we are. We have our own expression. We have our own take on how we think that we can fit into the bourbon industry and really add value. And it's gonna complement everybody else. We're not here to compete with anyone. We're here to be ourselves, be true to who we are, and we think that people will enjoy coming to visit us and enjoying our way of doing things.
Absolutely.
And we're going to welcome everybody to our home.
Yeah.
And it's like you're sitting around my Italian family and eating a good meal.
Yeah.
Eating more than you can, drinking more than you should, and if you have to, we have a bed for you to spend the night.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of bringing your home to us, we've got 2 bottles of whiskey sitting in front of us. Are we allowed to sample something while we sit here?
Yeah. So this is a special release that we did in July that I thought I'd share with you.
Oh, 100%.
So this is named after my daughter. Her name is Gianna Loren.
Oh, come on.
So we named it after her, and I developed this in 2010, which back then it was the first female named whiskey and bourbon.
Hey.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to pay tribute to the ladies out there and to not have something that's always named after a man. And
I always joke that there's so many names that you have to pay attention to in the whiskey world that are just Booker and
And it's great. They all have a place in history, but we also want to give the ladies a place in history.
Absolutely.
too.
For sure.
And then we have Luca Mariano is named after my son, and that's his first and middle name. And Mariano's my grandfather, and so we incorporate his name into it as well. So
That's incredible.
So with that said,
Yeah.
since my family's named on here, and I don't have any investors, I have no venture capital money behind me. I will never sell my company because this is my business.
Yeah.
This is our business together, and we're building a legacy, building a brand that will forever be within our family.
That's incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we're going to pour some of these out. While we do that, I want to put David on the hot seat here.
Oh.
We always do this when we bring guests into the tent. We want to hear about your favorite movie. What's your favorite film and why?
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Let's see. Thank you. I'm going to go with Apocalypse Now.
Oh,
Wow.
Yes.
man, you got heavy on us there.
There we go.
I think we might need to keep this bottle.
Yeah. So and why? Well, I mean, it's just so. I've always, for whatever reason, have no clue why. I've always been fascinated with the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
Have no. I was born in '71, so I don't know. Maybe something carried over from something. Who knows?
Really, it is one of the more fascinating wars in all of history.
It is, and doing a little research on the film and some of the craziness that went on in filming it, and then the thought, just how deep the provocation is there. The thought process.
Yeah.
And listen, Sheen's thoughts and then Brando's thoughts and all of these things going on there. It was just such a fascinating and deep movie that I got into at a younger age.
Yeah.
And I think it's some of those that just kind of sparked the interest in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
My second choice probably would have been The Shining.
Wow,
So,
man.
We need to get him.
You're just choosing all these enigma movies. I love it.
But you kind of go in again. Hell, that movie scared the hell out of me, and there really wasn't that much really frightening stuff other than the mental part. So
That's the thing is that movie is one of those ones where you don't know what the hell's going on in that movie, and that's what's frightening about it.
I remember watching Vertigo when I was like 14 or 15. And being terrified, and there's like not really many scary things in that movie, and yet somehow I was just on the edge.
But that's with Apocalypse Now, that was it. It was just trying to be in those guys' mind, all of them through the whole venture, and after reading the book that it was based on and everything else, it's just like, wow, this is crazy, to twist it, and then once you, like I said, once you get into the some of the history of the stuff that went on during the filming of that, it was like incredible that they ever pulled off that kind of what I thought was a masterpiece.
Absolutely.
Of a movie.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was gonna say-
yeah, there you go.
I was going to say, if listeners don't know about it, go listen to our episode about it first. And then secondly, just go read. I'm sure the Wikipedia page on Apocalypse Now is like 3 times as long as any other movie.
So here's the thing. They made a documentary called Hearts of Darkness back in like 92 or 93
Yes.
that I think won the Oscar for like best documentary. And the production of that movie was so crazy that they got like a 2.5-hour full documentary just about the making
How they made the
of
movie.
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
So right now, Francesco's going, "Oh my gosh, what the world have I brought?" He's over here having second thoughts right now, right?
Well, I want to slide the mic over to him because we just learned that he's a movie star. And, you know, he's
Bona
been
fide.
he's been in 2 movies this year already.
That is 2 more movies than anybody who listens to our podcast.
That's true. But I got to ask you now, what's your favorite film to watch? Not necessarily the greatest movie ever made, but like, I want to turn this movie on. It's my favorite.
I mean, mine are a little bit more light and fluffy, I guess.
I'm waiting to see.
It's
'cause
really easy to come up from Apocalypse Now.
I have an idea. I have an idea.
Oh, you do have an idea?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you
I don't
take
know
a guess?
the movie
Take
I
a
don't
guess.
have a movie name.
No. Oh.
But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna guess Hallmark Channel Christmas. Am I right? Am I right?
No, I mean, I've been known to watch those, but you can have, but no, I mean, I you know, when I go up north to my house in northern Michigan, I usually you know, when it's been a long time since I've been up there, I'll put on Wedding Crashers. And that always,
let's go!
that I just love it. I don't know why. It just makes me laugh.
Did you motorboat him?
Yeah, exactly.
Every time our kids are like sitting in the other room and like yelling for my wife, I always just go, "Mom, the meatloaf!"
Not meatloaf. No. Yeah, so I don't know. I like that movie. I don't get a chance to watch a lot of TV. I travel. About a third of my time is on the road.
Sure.
And I've never turned on the TV in my hotel room in probably 6-7 years.
Yeah.
I just don't
idea.
have time.
Yeah.
So when I get back, I just go to bed and I wake up and keep working. So I don't have as much time to watch TV as I used to. But and I love Bill Murray. So I'm a big Bill Murray fan.
Yeah.
So I like a lot of his movies. But Groundhog Day's always been one of my favorites.
No, it's a great movie.
It's such an incredibly well-crafted movie.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
Just spectacular.
Yeah.
Speaking of incredibly well crafted, I don't mean to like awkwardly segue us back into these whiskeys,
Bro.
But the Gianna Loren that we just had. So this is a 97 proof single barrel rye, and hear me when I say this. I'm not saying that this drinks too hot.
Yeah.
But if you had put that in front of me, I would have said that had the complexity, the punch of a barrel proof rye from any of the other guys.
Easily.
Like what they're doing with choosing their proof point and everything else at Luca Mariano. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, it's spot on. Genuinely, guys, we don't bullshit. Like, we'll be nice when we don't like a whiskey, but if you listen to us for long enough, you'll know.
Yeah, you'll know.
This is
not one of those whiskeys.
This is not one of those whiskeys, man. I personally have found that rye consistently is my favorite type of whiskey because a lot of times you get a lot of the decadence that you can get on a bourbon with all sorts of complexity in the spices and all sorts of other notes. So that Gianna Loren.
Thank you.
Let's go.
And it's 6 years now, but we're going to take this up to 8 years.
Wow.
That's why we're doing a special release for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get people excited and
you
learn about
call
it.
us in 2 years and we'll be on your doorstep.
Yeah.
Like lining up
if
for a
you need
bottle of
reps
this.
in Ohio, just let us know.
Okay, for sure.
Speaking of which, before we let you guys go today, tell us a little bit about your current distribution. I know, we're on site this weekend. People can buy bottles here at Kentucky Bourbon Festival, but where else can we find you?
So we're in currently 12 states, and we're adding more. We just brought on the same day that David came on board. We also had a friend of mine that I've known since my time at Michigan State. Didn't keep in contact, but our paths kept crossing, and so we thought it was time to bring him on board. But he spent 25 years at Gallo Wine.
Oh, wow.
He built brands for them and managed brands for 25 years, a big book of business. And he's going to help organize our distribution across the United States and take us into the international market as well.
That's
Internationally known Luca Mariano.
I can't wait to see what's next for the brand. I'm really excited. I can't believe you guys are sitting across from us now. 'Cause
Yeah.
we've been raving about this product
For a
for so
while.
long.
I was just thinking international, like getting into Italy has to be
Yeah,
like that's like
yeah.
the dream, right?
That's the dream, right? For sure. I mean, where my family's from, I mean, they're all excited. They're all rooting for us, and I always am able. They always are amazed because I bring a big suitcase and I have them all bubble wrapped with as much bourbon as I can fit
Yes,
in there.
yes.
And I pay the overage fee because it's more than 70 pounds or whatever it is. But for whatever reason, I get through security every time, and I bring it in. They're like, "How did you do it? How'd you do it?" Like, they're customs. I get through customs, and so they're very happy. But they're out. I haven't been there since just before COVID.
Yeah.
And so I need to.
You got to go restock them.
I need to
Yeah,
restock.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we cannot thank you enough for sitting down with us. Francesco, David from Luca Mariano. Again, we'll have you on again soon, but cheers to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Marlo. I'm from Ackworth, Georgia. My favorite movie is The Wizard of Oz because I'm originally from the Kansas area, and I would pair it with Rabbit Hole bourbon.
All right, Brad, we're back again today.
Bob.
Day 2.
Day 2 of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
I guess this is technically day 3.
Yeah, it is.
But it's day 2 of our recordings here.
That's right.
And we're sitting across the table from Dan McKee. He is the master distiller at Michter's. It is so good to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you, man. Michter's has continuously been putting out phenomenal product. That I have one specific friend who's just like a Michter's fanboy. So he's going to be really excited to hear this interview.
Well, tell him thank you.
Yeah.
It's always nice to talk with distillers and CEOs and everybody from this side of the industry and talk to them about their favorite movie and cut loose a bit. But there's also a great equalizer in Kentucky, and that equalizer is called humidity.
Yes.
And I'm not super sweaty yet. Dan is looking cool as a cucumber here. But man, it is going to be a hot one out here today. We're
Yeah,
just
it is.
like, but it's kind of cool to see like
Yeah.
the master distillers of all these places come sit in our booth and just drenched in
Yes.
sweat, you know?
Oh, it's a beautiful Kentucky day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dan, give us a little bit of the rundown of your history with the company. I mean, you've come from some of the biggest names in the industry. You've been at Michter's for a little while now, but what's your background in the industry?
Sure. Well, we're actually coming up on 17 years. I was very fortunate to start at Jim Beam as a distillery operator, promoted to distillery supervisor. So I worked both at the Claremont and the Booker No Distillery in Boston, Kentucky. So had 9 great years there, worked with a lot of great people, and then got the opportunity to join the Michter's team, again, coming up on 8 years. Worked with Pam Heilman. She was our second master distiller at Michter's. Worked with her well over 10 years. It's just been a great experience. Like I said, I've worked with so many great people. Just here at Michter's alone, you think of people like Willie Pratt, our first master distiller, mentioned Pam, Andrea Wilson, our master of maturation, which was just inducted into the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So, and the list goes on and on. It's just, it's been a great experience. It's a great industry. What better making bourbon here in Kentucky? I mean, over 95% of the bourbon's made here in Kentucky.
Yeah.
That's special. It's, a lot of great people.
And that's the thing I constantly hear, that like if you're in any other industry, you would almost have to be cynical about how often you hear it said in the whiskey world, "Oh, I worked with great people."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But like there's this constant reality where everybody that we know who is now a master distiller says that exact phrase. And you hear it enough times, you're like, oh, it must be true. There must just be some really great people working in this industry.
Yeah, I didn't get here by myself. I can tell you that. My 9 years at Jim Beam were on third shift, a very small crew. During summer shutdowns, you get to work with, other people during the days and so forth. I credit a lot of my experience to the operators I was working with, sitting inside a boiler as they were, doing preventative maintenance during the summer and so forth, and actually having a senior operator, showing me how exactly certain things, so that when it's all packaged back together, you actually have a now sound fundamental understanding of how it works. And then those are the little things. You need to understand those utilities that support the distillery. It's not just all fermentation. And that's the whole big part of running a distillery. And, you know, I owe it all to everybody. And you know, it's, you know, surround yourself with successful people.
Absolutely. Well, when you've worked with as many organizations as we have now and all the interviews that we've done, you can always spot a healthy organization and one that has trust kind of built into it. And when I look at the relationship between you and Andrea, you on the distilling side of things and her on the maturation side of things, I think that really speaks a lot to how trust is kind of built into the structure of Michter's, that you're handing these barrels off to her. Obviously, there's some collaboration there as well.
Very much so.
Yeah.
No, we have a great relationship. But that's, even if you go back to when I started back in late 2014, you know, Willie Pratt, everybody's working together, because no one person, again, as I mentioned, is, you know, the completely one person says all and how it goes, right? We all have to work together. Andrea and I work very well together. We challenge each other. There's a lot of understanding, discussions, things like that. And it's very rewarding, to be honest with you. And then to see the success that Michter's continues to have, because, you know, the distillery itself has that very long, rich, proud history that dates back to 1753 in Schaefferstown, Pennsylvania. But, you know, unfortunately, like a lot of distilleries, in 1989, the Pennsylvania distillery went bankrupt, abandoned the trademarks, and was lost to time. Well, as our current ownership and our president, Joe Malioco, went through the process of acquiring the trademarks and then bringing the brand to Kentucky to resurrect it, and we entered through 3 phases. You know, phase 1, purchasing those matured stocks that we wanted to emulate in the future, to phase 2, where we took our mash bill, proprietary yeast, specifications to a distillery here in Kentucky that had capacity. That thankfully went well. And then phase 3, our main distillery in Shively, which is kind of a city within a city of Louisville, Kentucky. That's our main operation. We do everything front to back with the distillery, one on-site warehouse, processing, bottling. You know, when I started, you know, like I said, coming up on 8 years ago, we were under 10 employees. If you factor in all our 3 locations, we're almost to 100 employees. Wow. Because we have our farm in Springfield, Kentucky, working with a local farmer to grow some estate-grown grains like corn, rye, barley. We have the beautiful Fort Nelson Distillery in downtown Louisville, where it actually has a fully operational distillery. We actually have pot stills that were used at the Schaefferstown, Pennsylvania distillery, right? So 3 cypress wood fermenters. It's a beautiful distillery to tour through. And then we have the bar at Fort Nelson, which serves world-class cocktails. David Wondrich, spirits and cocktail historian, helped curate part of the classic cocktails, and then our local bar team, you know, the rest of the menu, which is just very exciting, is why I say that. But then just as a distiller myself, and working with Michter's and their philosophy of kind of this cost be damn approach when it comes to quality, we do a lot of things that are not the most efficient. They cost more. And, you know, whether it's our barrels being the wood staves air dried, seasoned minimum 18 months to 60 months. Yeah. We toast all of our barrels before we char them. We enter our distillate into the barrel at a very low 103 proof. That's the lowest that we know of any distillery of scale. And this is all for all of our products, not just a special release. We, again, we enter into those new toasted charred American white oak barrels, and then we also heat cycle and do a custom chilled filtration. So those are our 6 key philosophies. You know, it's just amazing. And then as myself as a distiller, we have 100% copper distillation system made by Vendome here in Louisville. Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful, 46-foot tall, 32-inch diameter continuous column still to a doubler pot still. Yeah. Our doubler actually looks like the pot still that you see on everything Michter's. So
this is how you can tell a guy loves his job. Yeah. He's like the height of the thing. Yes. He's like, you're breaking down the dimensions of it. I love it, man. And I have to imagine that somebody that is as meticulous as you sits down to watch a movie with just the most critical eye, right? So when I think about what is Dan's favorite movie, I'm sure it's some masterpiece of world cinema or something. Easily. Right? Dan, what is your favorite film?
Well, they're masterpieces in their own right. I kind of thought that before I joined you, like, what is your favorite movie? I'm thinking, and I'm like, I'm 48 years old. I've seen a lot of movies, not as much recently because it seems, I spend a lot of time with my son and his sports and also work. So I'm like, what it really is. And then I do love a good comedy that just makes me laugh and not think about anything. So you can go to like a Will Ferrell, like Step Brothers. That just makes me laugh.
You're speaking Bob's language right there.
I mean, that actually, I do own the DVD for that. So that one is funny. It was given as a gift. But if you go old school, I mean, you just can't beat Rocky III. I mean, that movie itself, I have probably seen more than all movies together.
Yeah.
Watching the movie with a critical eye, it's funny. Early on in life, I would watch an action movie, and I'd get so frustrated when they would do things that weren't realistic.
Yeah.
My having a son, that has worn me down now because I've seen so many action movies with him that I'm like, okay, just accept it.
Right.
And now I actually enjoy them much better than I would have even 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So
we just did Rocky IV on the show not long ago. And, that talk about suspension of disbelief. You've got like 5'2" Sylvester Stallone punching up at, Dolph Lundgren. Can't even hardly
Who's
reach
like
him in the
7
face.
feet tall.
that actually was just on TV. And yes, did I watch most of it?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. You did.
I did.
Yeah.
And then I went away and I came back and we saw Rocky III on TV again. And again, I own the DVDs to that. And it's like, but I'll sit there and watch it with commercials still.
Yes.
That's how much I enjoy it. So
Yeah.
I know those, again, they're masterpieces in their
In their own right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the first Rocky is considered a masterpiece
Absolutely.
by a lot of people.
Yeah.
So,
I
like,
mean, the whole series, it's funny. But a good comedy that just makes me laugh and kind of just has that stupid humor. And,
we talked about early on in the podcast some of our favorite comedies of the 2000s. And I think The Hangover might be one of the last, like, really great, just pure comedies that has ever come out.
Oh, yeah.
Anymore, it's like you get a movie that is a drama with comedy or this with some comedic elements. But
there hasn't been like just a really good silly movie in a while.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, Dan, we can't thank you enough for sitting down with us today,
No,
man.
it's my pleasure.
It's always such a pleasure to talk to people like you, and we've never gotten the chance to tell you in person what a big fan we are of Michter. So thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you for asking Michters and myself. This has been a pleasure, and thank you.
I'm Jackie Simmons, and I'm from Johnson City, Tennessee. My favorite movie is The Sound of Music, and I would pair it with Angel's Envy.
All right, Brad, we're back with another interview.
We are here with Stephen Fante.
Honestly, I kind of want to let Stephen introduce himself because when he's got this thing down pat.
An epic introduction. So, Stephen, you tell us about what you do.
Well, glad to be here today, boys. My name is Stephen Fante, and I'm the National Brand Ambassador for Yellowstone, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. I'm also the right hand of Stephen Beam. I manage our barrel house, and I take care of all the barrel picks. So, whatever Steve's not doing is what I do.
Yeah.
I'm his flunky. He says I'm bubble gum on a shoe. Ever since I was 7 years old, I've known him, so I've hung out with him that long. He's like, I'm going to have to change my shoes.
Yeah.
You're stuck to them.
I was just telling Stephen right before we started here, Yellowstone is one of our favorite brands of whiskey, especially when you're talking about just the entry level, the baseline product.
80 to 90 proof,
We never find whiskeys in that proof point, 80 to 95, I would say anymore, that knock our socks off.
Yeah.
Every single time I've gotten Yellowstone, there's a level of complexity there.
Yeah,
And
it's killer, man.
Yeah. It's just, and so you wouldn't know this about our show, but when we score out whiskeys, we do a nose, taste, finish, balance, and then our fifth category is value. Because the average consumer wants to know, am I getting bang for my buck here?
Yeah. If I'm spending $22, is it worth it? If I'm spending $52, is it worth it?
In the state of Ohio, at a $35 price point,
ooh,
it might not even be that much. It might be less than $30. Yellowstone is just one of the best values on the shelf.
A consistent 8, 9 out of 10 value.
Yeah.
Easily.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. On behalf of the brand, let me thank you for such a great product. I appreciate it.
Well, I'll pass that on to Mr. Beam. All I do is talk about it.
There you go. Well, let's talk a little bit about your role. You said you're a flunky, you do everything, but specifically you're managing the barrel house, you're managing barrel picks. How do you, what's your day-to-day look like in that zone?
Well, it starts out early in the morning drinking whiskey. Usually it's almost cask strength. But, we get a group in and they want to do a barrel pick, and I take them through how to nose bourbons and how to taste bourbons and, how to break a bourbon down, give them a little bit more complex and intense class on that before we ever do anything. I don't know where the skill level is of the people that are walking in. Some people are brand new. They've never tasted a barrel in their life. Some people have been doing it, and they've done 360 picks, and everything that I tell them, they already know.
Yeah.
But typically I find out that they learn something. Even the ones that are experienced have learned something after that. Previously, I was a tea sommelier for John Connie Coffee Company and imported the teas from all over the world and did some blends of tea called Conti Iced Tea that took them to almost a national level. And then I was Golden Cup certified in the industry of coffee, which is the highest certification the Specialty Coffee Association gives for nosing, tasting, brewing standards in coffee. At the time that I received my certification, I was one of like 14 in the nation Golden Cup certified trainers.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And so I did that for a long time. And then Mr. Beam had me, stave and thiefed. He took me to the class with him, and I got to become an executive bourbon steward, which is an earned title. It means that you had to actually distill whiskey. And I don't call myself a distiller because if you asked me by gunpoint to go in there and distill something, I'd blow something up. I call myself a national brand ambassador because that's what I am. I like to talk about it and bring it in layman's terms to people from all over the world, exactly what whiskey's all about.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think it's really cool to hear somebody talk about coffee, tea.
That's what I wanted to go in on here. Yeah.
We don't talk about this enough, but I have seen how drinking whiskey for the last 3 years for this podcast, as my palate has grown with whiskey, all of a sudden I'm drinking coffee and I'm like, oh, I'm noticing notes on my coffee that I never would have noticed before. And so I can't encourage this highly enough. Like, the more you drink whatever you like, wine, coffee, whiskey, whatever it is, tequila, it will help you enjoy other beverages even more. And what a great person to talk to about that than a Golden Cup kind of guy.
So my brother was the president of the Specialty Coffee Association of America, and he did that for a while. He has Fante's Coffee in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a European coffee house that's absolutely extraordinary. He has a 10-kilo Ambex roaster along with about a 500-pound roaster.
Yeah.
2 different roasteries in the same area, in the same parking lot. And he roasts coffees for about 18 to 20 different coffee houses in America under their own private labels. And he makes Yellowstone bourbon coffee for us.
Wow.
So when you come to the Distillery gift shop, you can get a pound of Yellowstone bourbon coffee. And it's done with 100% Arabica bean coffee at the highest standard in the industry.
Yeah.
But, that's what my brother does. My other brother, Daryl's the president of the Sports Commission for the city of Louisville. He is the incoming president right now. He's vice president at the moment. So
when are you going to get a president title then? It sounds like the Fantes are all presidents.
Like flunky. That's a better title.
All right, I can't delay this any longer. We've been asking everybody that sat down across the table from us here to talk about their favorite movie. And the odds of this happening are just absolutely astronomical. But Brad's grinning from ear to ear. Mr. Fante, can you please introduce your favorite film to us?
Absolutely. Since I was a child, I was shipped off to Oklahoma to stay with an uncle on a ranch. And he was one quite of a character, as you can imagine, one of the last American cowboys.
Yeah.
He had a 3,500-acre cattle ranch, and he would take me on horseback, and we would go mend fences together. And, he was a big character.
Did he ever give you tobacco, tobacco when you were way too young?
Oh yes, I took a whole, not just tobacco, skull.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a whole mouthful of skull on horseback gives you a buzz like you can never imagine. In the middle of the heat, in the middle of Oklahoma, up in the Ozark Mountains, is quite a ride. I definitely remember that first experience for a long time.
Quite vividly.
Yes, I will always remember that experience. But yes, Secondhand Lines is my favorite movie because it is my childhood. It is what I grew up with, those crazy uncles of mine hanging out with me. And if you've ever seen the movie, if you've never seen the movie, it's rated G. You need to show your kids this movie. It's a fantastic thing.
I continually say that I think it is one of the greatest coming-of-age films that has ever been made. Yeah. And we had it on the podcast at my insistence at some point. And I will admit, it looks a little bit like a TV movie. It's not the high production quality of some films, but the story that you get and how in the world they got Michael Caine and Robert Duvall to just be themselves, what I hope they're actually like, and give that kind of a performance for such a little movie. The acting is spectacular in this movie, guys.
It was extraordinary. I've watched it. I couldn't even tell you 17, 20, I don't know how many times, but a lot.
Yeah. I keep coming back to the scene when Haley Joel Osment is standing at the bottom of the stairs with the candle, and Caine and Duvall are just like, well, son, if we kick off in the middle of the night, you're on your own. And Haley Joel Osment just gives the perfect wide-eyed, like, I think they are going to die tonight.
Well, Mr. Fante, we can't thank you enough for sitting down with us today. Again, like shameless plug for Yellowstone bourbon. One of my favorites on the shelf. We're super fortuitous just to run into you and be able to tell you in person.
Yeah. So. Fastest growing bourbon brand in the United States is Yellowstone Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's up 144% over last year. If you've not tasted it yet, you're one of the few that haven't. It's time you taste it, and for every bottle of it that you go through, what happens? A percentage goes back to the National Parks Conservancy.
Really?
I don't know what other bourbons you're drinking, but I guarantee if you drink ours, you'll save in parks.
Yeah.
So drink more Yellowstone.
That's amazing. Well, do you guys have anything coming down the line? What's coming up that you're excited for?
Got a lot of things coming up I'm excited for. We got an experimental barrel house out back that's extraordinary, and all these different experiments that Mr. Beam has done. There's some things coming in the pipeline. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about them yet.
That's okay.
But they're coming, and you're going to see an expansion of the line of Yellowstone in the near future, I do believe.
I can't wait for it.
Super excited. Guys, this was Stephen Fante from Yellowstone. Thank you so much for sitting with us, Stephen.
Nice to meet you guys.
Hi, this is Craig from Ohio, and my favorite movie is Fatal Attraction, and I would pair that with any high rye because it will leave a long-lasting effect on you.
All right, Brad. We are joined by a person who's been on the show before. We've never met.
I'm so excited to have back on the show.
We've never met in the flesh because of the pandemic, but we're finally sitting across the table from Chris Morris, master distiller of Woodford Reserve.
You know, a decent brand.
One of our favorite whiskeys in the world. Chris, I don't know if we told you this the first time you were on the show, but the whiskey that got us into drinking whiskey was Woodford Double Oak.
You mentioned that, yes.
Yeah. And that's still the case today.
Yeah.
We were just talking with somebody before you came over who bought a case full of Woodford Reserve, the single barrel you all have for sale here. And just singing the praises of it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Great.
There's something to be said for a brand that is as consistently good as Woodford Reserve.
Just constantly one of the best whiskeys out there. So, Chris, you're killing it.
Well, that's what we try to do. Appreciate that.
I was going to say, he's humble enough that he's not going to take the credit for it. But literally, the credit belongs to you for that. So thank you for what you've done for our whiskey drinking lives together.
Yeah, it's important.
So it's been about 2 years since we've had you on the show now.
Yes.
Catch us up a little bit with the brand, major developments that we haven't been able to discuss together.
Well, certainly with the pandemic and its impact, as everybody knows, has led to supply chain issues. Our difficulty has been getting glass bottles to put Double Oaked in or put Woodford Reserve in.
Yeah.
So first, I would like all your listeners to know there's plenty of Woodford. We just don't always have bottles for it. But we're finally overcoming that.
Isn't it crazy, though, stuff like that? Like,
I know.
Like, when you drink whiskey, you don't think about the fact that you're like, oh, yeah, I guess they do need a bottle to put.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
I just pictured people lining up at the Woodford Distillery and you all just like ladling it into our mouths. You know,
Some days that would have been easier.
Yeah.
But also we took the time over that slow period to literally double the production capacity of the distillery, which has been a long talked and awaited project. So we have added another set of pot stills. So we have 2 sets of 3 pot stills.
Awesome.
We've added 8 more fermenters, literally doubling the 8 we had originally. And it's just amazing as we bring online our new old-fashioned equipment, how exciting that is. So we're gearing up for continued growth, obviously. We've continued to produce our Masters collection and our Distillery series. And the innovation of our Woodford Reserve Baccarat, the
Absolutely.
most expensive frontline bottle of bourbon in the world, continues on. COVID again slowed its global release down, and now it's picking up steam again. So we haven't done a whole lot of new. We're doing just more of what we've been doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what you've been doing is, it's Woodford Reserve.
It's Woodford Reserve. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about the Woodford Reserve Distillery and the sort of the front-facing aspects of that, because to this day, Woodford was the first distillery I ever toured, and I think to this day it's still my favorite of the distillery tours.
Oh, thank you.
And we were talking right before we pressed record about the Kentucky Bourbon Festival and why we all like it, because in a lot of ways it reflects Kentucky. Like it's a slower, it's a quieter festival than some of the louder ones we've seen over the years. And Woodford Reserve as a distillery, I think that tour so reflects
what Kentucky is all about.
And if you've ever been to Versailles, Kentucky, we used to live in Wilmore. We were not far away. So there's just something about having that kind of quietness, and it seems to be so in touch with the land around it. Obviously, as the distiller, I don't know what kind of hand you have in that process, but when you look at what you all are doing for the consumer and forward-facing, I'm sure you take great pride in that.
Oh, yes, we do. And thank you for your comments on our local community. Woodford County is a very rural county, but not the typical farm you will find in most other parts of Kentucky. They are some of the finest thoroughbred horse farms in the world.
Yep.
So beautiful, almost landscape, part-like agricultural country. And Versailles, it reflects that. It's an old horse town, as well as a distilling town. So it understands hospitality, entertaining to a great degree. And we definitely, as part of the community, are in constant contact with our county judge, the sheriff, the citizens of Woodford County. So we work together to maintain that environment and atmosphere that we're all so proud of. So it's a great community. And to project that literally globally is important, because Woodford Reserve reflects that community.
Yeah.
As you noted, it's pastoral, it's historic, it's authentic. Thoroughbred horses are some of the greatest athletes in the world, and are bred to the highest degree of expertise and excellence. Think about the Kentucky Derby winner, the Breeders' Cup winners, the Irish Stakes. You go down down the list of the great horse races, and that symbolizes Woodford Reserve. Again, we like to think we're at the peak of our sport, our profession, highest quality, and all that is also all about longevity. A great thoroughbred should have a long life, a successful life after his or her racing career. And Woodford Reserve, we're building for the future. That's why we've doubled our production capacity. We fully expect Woodford to be in it for the long haul.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not to go too deep here, but I was listening to a pastor named Tim Keller talk about the difference of a one-generation church and an institution.
Oh, yes.
And he talks about the differences when a church or an organization can outlast the person who started it and pass on to multiple generations and continue into the future. That is an institution. And there's something awesome about an institution, because that it's high quality enough that it survives the ups and downs of the culture it lives in.
Yes.
And I think Woodford kind of represents that.
That's very true. And I really get a charge out of talking to, acquaintances, friends, etc., who travel, say, to Spain. And we took a vacation in Spain 3 years ago, and they didn't have any Woodford. Now, every bar we went to in Spain had Woodford Reserve. As you start to see that momentum building, and you hear that more and more. We're traveling around the world. And when you think about that, if you are sitting at a bar, and let's use Spain again as our example, because I've had this very personal observation and feeling, and I look at that bottle of Woodford on the shelf, I said, every bit of that bottle came from home.
Yeah.
That is a little bit of Woodford County sitting on a shelf in Spain.
In Barcelona.
It just makes you feel really safe,
yeah,
and comfortable. That there's a little bit of home here.
Yeah.
And there's not too many industries or brands within an industry that you can make that claim.
Sure. I'm a big college football fan.
Yeah.
One of the major college football programs right now is Clemson University in South Carolina. Their coach Dabo Swinney, he has a mentality that he always just says, we're just little old Clemson. We're not supposed to be here, right?
Yeah.
And he's obviously built that into a powerhouse now.
10-year, $500 million contracts,
But what I'm saying is, I think that there's something to be said about a person, Chris, in your position, in a company as large as Woodford Reserve, that when you go somewhere like Spain, that there is still that perspective that at the end of the day, it's still, little old Versailles, Kentucky that's on the shelf and represented worldwide. And I think that's what we love about talking with people in this industry is none of you all have seemed to have lost that perspective.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that.
Those of us, especially like Freddie and Bill Samuels and others who've been in it since they were born, literally, we've gone through hard times.
Yeah.
We've gone through times when we thought there wouldn't be a future. And we've all worked so hard. Not that we haven't loved doing that, but we've worked so hard and fought for the integrity and appreciation of our whiskey, bourbon whiskey, Kentucky bourbon whiskey. And I don't think we can ever lose that feeling of pride. And when we see those bottles. And hopefully the next generation, talking about your institutions. Hopefully the next generation who haven't had to undergo that will still have appreciation, because there's a lot of wonderful people coming in our industry. Why? Because we've made it. It's popular.
We were literally just talking to somebody a little bit earlier, and they said I've worked with so many great people that have led me to be what I am today. And that's just something we keep hearing in this industry. Like, I just got to work with the best people that taught me so much. And I feel like this industry just is emblematic of this industry.
Well, before we let you go, we have to pivot into movies for a minute.
Obviously.
Now, we had you on the show talking about your two favorite films, The Day the Earth Stood Still and The Searchers. And the timing of this could not be better, because Brad and I are about to record a series of films by the director John Ford, and The Searchers is one of them. We have not done The Searchers on the show yet.
I just watched Stagecoach within the last couple of weeks.
That was an early one for the podcast.
Yeah.
We did that a while ago.
1934.
Let me check in with you on this. How long has it been since you've seen The Searchers?
Okay, because I just watched Hondo last week.
You're just rotating through all the John Wayne movies.
and all the John Waynes. I haven't watched The Searchers probably since we were together.
Okay. All right. So when I ask you this, what should we be on the lookout for? Like what scenes stood out to you? Which ones really stick with you? So if you're telling someone that's watching it for the very first time, be aware of this or look out for this little thing, what would you suggest?
Well, I got a couple of scenes, but first of all, watch John Wayne's performance. It's considered by many to be his finest performance.
Absolutely.
His most emotional performance. So he does a great job. Absolutely. And there's a lot of comedy in it as well that you wouldn't think about with such a serious subject matter, but there's a lot of good comedy in the entire movie. But of course, the iconic opening scene and the last scene where John Ford uses the same door of the cabin of the home of John Wayne's brother for his entry and exit. The sun, his silhouette, it's art. It's pure
it's iconic.
art.
That's exactly what it is.
If you've not seen The Searchers and that doesn't convince you to go watch it, then I don't know what will, because that just is a perfect, beautiful description of what you're getting in a movie like this.
And then what they both symbolize birth, and it's just it shows that a Western could be intellectual and artistic as well as exciting at the same time.
Well, I'd be curious to ask Chris, like, when you're going into these classic Westerns, it seems to be your genre of choice. What's the feel that you're looking for when you get into these Westerns that you're like, this is why I go back to Hondo. This is why I go back to The Searchers, Stagecoach. Like, what is it that draws you back each time?
Well, certainly, why in the first place? Growing up here, that's what my father, my grandfather. I mean, when Bonanza was on, shut up. We grew up with the westerns,
Sure.
and that whole genre of this was America. Right or wrong, that's what we grew up with.
Yeah.
And I like, number one, like not to be trite, like a good glass of bourbon. I know the western's going to end up in a nice place.
Yeah.
The good guys.
Yep.
Unless you're watching one of the new westerns of the modern world, the good guys are going to win. The horse is going to be safe. The woman's going to be hugged. Everything's going to be happy.
See, I don't know. My wife doesn't like John Wayne movies because the dog always dies.
Well,
and that is that's a no-go for her.
As long as everybody but the dog makes it out okay, it's a net positive, right?
So there's going to be a happy ending.
Yep.
And I'm a sap for happy endings. I love happy endings.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a moral story, usually. I mean, maybe some of the B movies didn't have moral story. But there's a moral story.
Yeah.
High Noon, my
I
gosh.
was literally about to say High Noon. If you want to talk about a moral story in the West, about the man standing on his moral ground, come on.
The original True Grit, the second True Grit. So anyway, there's...
I don't know, Chris. Bob stands by the second True Grit.
Oh, that's great. No, it's great.
Yeah.
But it's a remake of the original True Grit.
Exactly.
But again, so there's going to be a moral story. There are going to be lessons learned, and then hopefully that happy ending.
Yeah.
And also beautiful cinematography.
Yes.
Yeah.
Into the music and the beautiful... There's so much to love in Westerns that I think a lot of modern people sleep on.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Chris, we can't thank you enough for coming sitting down
good to be
across
with
the
you
table
all.
from us.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you around the festival again, and thanks for being here.
Okay. Enjoy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so that was the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Brad, we will be back next Monday with another regularly scheduled episode. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.